Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for everyone. I'm Milene Aguiar and I will be helping out with the webinar for today. Just a few heads up before we start. After the presentation, we are going to have time for questions. You can use the Q&A box, the chat box in the bottom of the Zoom page. Please use the option send to everyone, not only to the presenter, because I'm going to help him in the end of the presentation. I'd like to welcome Angie, who will present the webinar today. Angie, feel free to introduce yourself and start whenever you want.
Thank you, Lainey. Appreciate that. And maybe Jacob, who's joining me from WRC as well. We'll jump off microphone, and between us, we're going to navigate through just a short slide deck to familiarize everybody on the call or everybody who might listen into the call afterwards on this topic of non-revenue water and carbon initiative that was kicked off late last year. So the initiative is closely follows after the previous emissions initiative, which Steve Kavanagh and colleagues from Kavanagh Associates commenced last year, and that was with a view to identify where the positive side of the balance, the emissions related to energy and production of water could be identified. And this is a complementary project, really, then leading on from that to understand how all the activities that take place by a utility in order to manage non-revenue water then balance off the other side of the equation so that there's an economic level of carbon associated with non-revenue water management. So I'm Andy Blackhall, Managing Director at WRC, and my colleague Jacob Farrelly is joining us from Oman. We'll look to share dynamically the presenting of these slides as we go, just so you're not listening to me totally. Okay, so here we have, in terms of the context of the project, historically the main drivers of non-revenue water programs and projects in their creation form have been around volumetric water loss reduction and improve revenue recovery. And that structures around the water balance, the IWA water balance. All NRW programs incur activity that has a consequence, a carbon intensity associated with them. And so the idea behind this initiative is, as mentioned, to continue looking at non-revenue water as a solution to climate and carbon-related challenges by understanding carbon intensity a little better. So increasingly widely recognise that this needs to be done properly and in a robust way, so that like-for-like project appraisals at the project creation stage can take place. So understanding the carbon emissions associated with each non-revenue water-related activity is therefore essential. And part of the challenge of the project has been to what level of granularity do we limit that deep dive into the emissions. But it's essential because if it's looking to compare non-revenue water to other carbon solutions, then there needs to be a level playing field. There needs to be a defined methodology so that benefits can be compared. So driving investment towards carbon efficient operations that maximize water loss reduction is one of the objectives. And then stimulating innovation in technology and operational practices and knowledge sharing, or even alternative techniques, nature-based solutions with lower carbon intensity materials. So the idea of this assessment, this project, will help the operator or the financier understand that they're selecting the right, the optimized solution, including carbon as well as the other factors of volumetric water saved and improved revenue recovery. So the project aims, the goal is to develop and implement a carbon efficiency rating system. So Stuart Hamilton, who first posited the idea, I think had washing machines or microwaves in mind, whereby you can walk down the aisle of a white goods seller and you can choose an efficiency rating on a washing machine. Likewise, on all of the opportunities we've got to reduce non-revenue water, we're looking for something similar. And the purpose was to allow utilities and investors to make those informed decisions, balancing the immediate carbon impacts with long-term water and carbon saving. And so we seek to quantify the carbon cost of non-revenue water reduction activities, analyse global trends and best practices on this topic, and then promote sustainable solutions for non-revenue water management. And the purpose of this call today is to start to raise the profile. A lot of work has gone on to put the right mechanisms in place. There's a website, there are tools to use, and there's some guidance in place. And now the purpose of this is to put out as far and wide as possible a call to action for people to start to become comfortable with the methodologies and to start to share their data with a view to receive feedback on that data, comparators, but also then to encourage others to do likewise. So the project roadmap looks like this. There was a white paper. This is available on the website. You can have a read of that. If you've got any questions, you can get in touch with any of the team. The website is published here as waterbasedcarbon.com. We're at second stage now. We're calling for data. We need as much information and data as possible. We're conscious that this might be readily available in certain areas and it might be very sparse in other areas. And there might be some need for expertise or support to be able to help individuals find how they can derive their own data. The project team are more than happy to do that, as well as most people on the water loss steering group would be happy to help with that. And then following a period of call for data, we're hoping that the call for data would be closed by the 30th of June, but that most likely will be extended depending on how much data comes back and in what format. The idea then is that that data can be synthesized, that we can analyze it, we can cleanse it, and start to make sense of it. And then we can start to push that back out to everybody and distribute that so it can be used and conclusions can start to be drawn and recommendations taken forward. So I'll hand over to Jacob at this stage, if that's okay, Jacob, and you're happy to step us through the website and some of the tools for data collection.
Yeah, absolutely. So on sort of joining the website at waterbasedcarbon.com, you'll be met with this splash screen. And the purpose of this call is to encourage everyone to sign up. So you'll be able to sign up, log in with the buttons on the front. And if you move to the next slide, Andy. The aim is to then contribute or get access to the database and contribute through the data upload template. So we've worked to put together a template which best distills down NRW activities into categories and then provides guidance on the sort of information that's required. We're ideally looking for anybody who's got insight on the sort of activities and carbon costs of those activities anywhere internationally. We're not saying only fill in this form if you can give a comprehensive sort of end-to-end look at carbon for NRW. If you've got any information, data, or expertise on any aspect of NRW, then this is a template which will allow you to fill parts of that in, contribute to the whole database, and be able to also view the rest of that database and see what other people are uploading. Each tab of the upload template has guidance on what's expected in each of the columns. So in this example below is the first category, which is methods of travel to site, where you'd be selecting what your typical travel type is. In terms of carbon scope, we've asked to record what typical vehicle ownership is, whether it's your organization or a third party. Because of the complexities in doing NRW, looking at the activities from various organizations, we've opted not to split directly into scope 1, 2, and 3. So the carbon activities should be scope 1 and scope 2 carbon from the perspective of whichever organization is carrying out, whether that is a contractor or whether that is the water utility themselves. And if we move on to the next tab, Andy.
Just thinking, Jacob, as an insight here, I know that Chris Evans at Detection Services in Australia ran a project using electric scooters as a means of travel for an NRW project. So that'd be a good example here, whereby if that's commonplace, using that as a travel type gives a very different carbon footprint, doesn't it? Which is it also brings in innovation. So just as an example, sharing that one.
Yeah, that's exactly the sort of thing that we're looking to capture in those extra rows. Because if there is an innovative solution like that might be more outside the box than other companies have considered, it's great to highlight that to people. So the information that we're looking for is quite granular, because we're looking at the costs of individual activities associated with NRW programs, so that we can grade these activities, and when a program of work comes together, it can be shown that actually your transport activities, your excavation activities, etc., are all on various bands of carbon grading. That second bullet point is the point on scope emissions that I've mentioned. So if you're recording emissions as a value, we've asked for a CO2 equivalent for scope 1 and scope 2, as though it's the organization carrying out the activity. So if you know how much carbon costs your contractors incur, then fill that in as scope 1 and scope 2 rather than scope 3. Within the tab, there's currently 8 categories. They're listed below. We've split these out to cover what we see as the majority of activities involving NRW. It is an evolving template, so if members want to contribute, get in touch with the help desk and say if there's any gaps in that list of activities, then that's fantastic. But equally, we think that this is a pretty comprehensive set of categories. So it's travel to site, installation, detection, repair and replacement, and then within that repair and replacement, there is what sort of excavation is happening with backfill and reinstatement, what types of land and what types of machinery are being used to do that, and then device communication to do with sort of NB-IoT or 4G, 5G leakage detection devices. So this is all the sort of information that smart device suppliers will be able to sort of contribute on the one hand, or operational contractors will have more information in another. So the idea is that we're canvassing as wide as possible to try and get a broad picture of the different carbon impacts, and especially how those vary regionally. I think if we jump on to the last slide, we've got next steps. So it's a big thank you to the contributors who've already signed up. We've got a list on the website so people can showcase and see exactly who's able to contribute or not. And the aim of the game is get as much data uploaded as possible. And then there's this ability to view other members' contributions. We at WLC are going to synthesize the data, flag gaps, and where there are these gaps, we'll look to fill those in from literature. But that will end up being a sort of a global estimate, and we'd really like to see how these costs vary based on activities as they're carried out globally, so across international members. So feedback and questions can be pinged through to the email address or asked now.
Thanks, Jacob. So with that short presentation overview, I'm happy to take some questions, Melanie.
No questions in the chat box? Anyone wanna join in and ask the question, even if just talking or something?
Hey gang, Steve Kavanaugh. Great presentation. Good to see. It's the first time I've actually had an opportunity to look at the website. Very comprehensive. So I'm curious about the, go back to the scoping. Actually, if you can show the slide that shows the 8 categories, just to have a little more dialogue on that. And if we we need to truncate this, certainly do that. But I'm curious of things like asphalt and the energy and the petroleum and so forth that goes into that if it's a purchased material in the reinstatement. So we do a roadway cut, we make a repair, and we come back to that. How are we assuming that in the backfill, is that where something like that would be captured? So I'm looking for like the creation of that petroleum-based product, if you will, for asphalt. Just talk us through a kind of a repair and how tracking of that data, and if that's in somebody else's scope 1 and scope 2, but we're purchasing it. So just maybe by example, talk through that in these categories, specifically asphalt repair.
Yes, so that's a really interesting point, is that with anything involving materials, you can go further and further back in the supply chain and
Right.
look at the carbon costs incurred. So what we haven't decided to do with this project is look at a whole life cycle carbon emission for every aspect of every activity. We're just interested, say, so on that asphalt backfill example, on the operational costs. So when you're backfilling that asphalt, what is your fuel use for any machinery used in backfill? Have you used transport on that front? It's not looking at who the supplier of that asphalt, what carbon cost was incurred when they were pulling that out of the ground. So for the moment, it's just looking at the operational costs. It's not looking at whole life cycle, because of the size of scope of what that question is.
Right, and I know this is
it was something that we were definitely interested in, but we wanted to get a foundation of data first before expanding the scope to that sort of scope 3 supply chain impacts.
Right. No, I can see that it would be never ending. I mean, of really trying to figure that out. So what about so like the delivery of the material, so the delivery of the asphalt or the delivery of the backfill material to the site. Let's just say they don't have the borrow on site, so they're having to truck in from a third party. I'm trying to just get in my mind exactly what you're putting here, the categories of where is the demarcation. Is it only in the transport of that material, assuming that the utility has that material stockpiled or something like that, gravel or select fill, something like that? Just again, trying to understand the boundaries that we're working within in this initiative, because it could be endless, as you said.
Yeah, exactly. So we want that boundary to be the operational boundary of the leak detection activity. So if, as part of your leak detection activity, you're transporting that backfill to site, then that falls within scope. If you're ordering it to site, for example, it's more difficult for you to know your supplier's carbon costs. So we wouldn't expect that to be supplied as part of the analysis stage. So there's a notes sort of carbon unit note column in the table where we'd like people to really specify what they've set as that boundary. So as part of the analysis phase, we can look to account for if one contributor has done all of that transport themselves and is accounting for it, whereas a different contributor hasn't.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that is it. Angie, Jacob, thank you very much for the presentation. Would you like to say something else, like bye everybody? Hope you send your information, please.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I think there's going to be some great fanfare, competition, and reward for the best contributor of data to the NIW Carbon Initiative at the Brazil 2026 plug IWA water loss conference. So if you need an incentive, then we'll be looking for something pretty unique there. Maybe it's I don't know, some hang gliding or something like that. But yeah, thank you very much for joining the call. The initiative will only be a success with data. If there's any clarifications or if there's any queries about any part of the process, what's in scope, what's out of scope, then by all means get in touch or access the website, access the fields, and just provide as much text or clarification as needed. That'd be really appreciated. Once the data has been synthesized, the idea is there are a couple of stage reports to be released. We're looking to share as much as possible with everybody, and that will then hopefully start to inform some projects. Just one development that we had Friday, is that we're asking, it was yesterday, wasn't it, Jacob? Sunday. We're asking colleagues here in the UK, UK water industry research that we work with on carbon emissions, whether they would be prepared to share data into the database as well, and we'll let everybody know how that goes. We'll just add some value too. So yeah, appreciate it. Thank you very much for sharing, Melania. And
Don't
we
say goodbye. Don't say we
no,
have a question
we're not.
right now.
Oh, we have a question.
We do have a
Okay.
question right now. How long? Matching is asking how long the data needs to be collected.
So we've So we've said that we'd like the call for data to be open until the end of the month. So we've set the 30th of June as a cutoff date for the call for data. But if anybody has any problems meeting that cutoff date, then please get in touch.
I'm not sure if the question was how long
Yes,
how long ago the data needs to be collected.
So it needs to be a 1 year data, 6 months data, monthly consumption of carbon, because during a non-revenue water project, the carbon footprint can be different in different times.
Yes,
so that's why. So should we go 1 year back and collect this carbon footprint for the 1 year, or 2024, 2025? That's what I mean, because it's very hard to going back and collecting these data. So we need to have a baseline to start with.
Yes. So we're less focused on having a total number for NRW from each company, and we're more interested in what per unit activity. So say 1,000 leaks were repaired in a year, we want to understand how much carbon per leak, rather than how much carbon was used that year. So if you take an average, if you have that total number, then taking an average over the previous reporting year would be perfect. But ideally, we're after a bottom-up calculation, so an understanding of, from the constituent activities that go into, say, a leak repair or a backfill or an excavation, what the individual cost to one team doing that is. So that should be a unit of carbon cost per activity, rather than total cost over 2023 for the utility.
Okay, thanks.
Good to see you.
Now I think it's goodbye, Andy. We don't have any other questions.
Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay,
thank you all.
Thank you very much.